Yes. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Doctor Who tier list. Today, we're going to be ranking the 4th Doctor's era in this lovely little tier list we have here. I say little, it's not little at all. We in fact have quite a great many stories to get through in this video, considering Tom Baker has the longest tenured era of the show, spanning at 7 years in length, which is the main reason why it's taken a bit longer for me to get this tier list video out to you, because it just frankly took a while for me to binge through his era, especially when I got to the second half of his run, which we will get to that when we get to it. But I guess with all that whipped shit out of the way, let's get into it and discuss Season 12, a season of Doctor Who that I hold in very high regard, is in fact my favourite run of Doctor Who episodes the show has ever seen in its 60+ year span, and we do indeed start off strong with Robot. I am instinctually going to put this in A. Robot is an interesting one, because though Robot is the beginning of the 4th Doctor's era, it is also the final Barry Letts story from his run. This does not feel like a Philip Hinchcliffe style story. It feels like the leftovers of the Pertwee years, which isn't a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. It makes Robot stand out to me personally. The 4th Doctor is thrown headfirst into like investigating like robberies, and then we get the stuff with the Science Society and the robot itself, which, yeah, the costume for the robot is a wee bit jank, but it's got some charm to it. It's the CSO. It's the green screen stuff in part 4 where the robot becomes a giant robot, if you will. That's when it gets a bit ropey, and when we see Liz Sladen getting picked up by the robot, that's when it gets a bit jank, when it comes to the visual effects side of things. But it's got its charm. It's classic Who. You have to appreciate the wobbly sets, I always say. But for the most part, the robot is intimidating until that moment happens. I enjoy that we see the inclusion of Harry Sullivan in this story as well, and having it set as like a Barry Letts style story creates this great dynamic of seeing how this new Doctor interacts in the environment that the previous Doctor was in. So this is like a very much a unit family story. It feels familiar, and it basically eases you into what the 4th Doctor is going to be like going forward. It's a great first story for Tom Baker, in my opinion, which is why I'm very fond of it, and I think it easily belongs in A, if not S tier. I'm tempted to whack it in S, you know. I'm going to leave it in A for now, but don't be surprised if I end up promoting it as this video goes along. But yeah, now we move on to the Ark in Space, famously regarded as, I think it was Russell T Davis's favourite story. I love how I just default to chucking it in S. That is exactly where it belongs, in S tier, personally. It might just be my bias towards Season 12, but Space Station Nerva as a whole is one of my favourite locations in Who. And I love that we return to it a few times, and it's referenced a few times in Season 12. And what I like about Season 12 is it feels like a conjoined run of episodes that like do link together and are all important in their own right, because Sontaran Experiment has a tenuous link to Ark in Space. Obviously, Revenge of the Cybermen has a very strong link to Space Station Nerva, which we'll get to that when we do. But all in all, Season 12 is so strong for me because each story works so well to do a different thing for the season, but they still all fit so well as a complete package. It's such a great binge going through Season 12. I can't tell you how many times I have binged just Season 12 because it is that good to me. I personally, I'm really fond of the set. The script is fucking amazing. The Wirren are threatening, and them like threatening the sleeping colonists was a really good inciting incident and plot for the Doctor to have to resolve, because obviously there are a lot of lives at stake by default in this story, thanks to it being a colony ship. Obviously the Homo sapiens speech that Tom Baker performs in this story needs no introduction. It's been clipped on top 10 best moments of Doctor Who, or speeches, or whatever. It is a great moment. The effects in this story, just like with Robot, they aren't really up to par. Case in point, the green bubble wrap should be a great indicator of the shoddy, wobbly sets that this story has. But that, honestly, like I said with Robot, it adds to its charm for me. Like, I love seeing budget Doctor Who where the budget doesn't match the ambition, but you can't help but love how much effort and love went into the story, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. I will also say about the whole bubble wrap thing, I think the one of the reasons why the story still works and there's still a threat and like stakes to it is how the character Noah plays the green bubble wrap so straight. Like the performance on that guy, I think his name was Kenton Moore or something like that. That's what I've written in my notes. He plays that performance so damn well that you forget that they've genuinely just wrapped his hand in like green cellophane, right? That's essentially what they've done. But goddamn, does he sell it? But the whole cast is on top form here. Tom Baker, considering this is Tom Baker's second story, damn, it is impressive that he has already slipped so seamlessly into the role, in my opinion. Obviously, Liz Sladen, gorgeous to see on screen, one of my favorite companions. Harry creates just such a great sort of like sibling rivalry dynamic for the TARDIS team. Like the Doctor is like the teasing older brother. Harry is like the youngest child trying to pick on the middle child, Sarah. I just love the TARDIS team as well, which is also one of the reasons why I love season 12 so much. Ark in Space, amazing. I think it's an easy S tier for me. And this next one is kind of a deep cut in Tom Baker's era, the Sontaran Experiment. I might raise some eyebrows here, above Ark in Space for me. The Sontaran Experiment was one of the very first Doctor Who stories I ever watched. So you can imagine the nostalgia that I have attached to this story. But just going through it, I love, once again, that this follows directly on from the whole space station Nerva stuff. I also love this story as only 2 parts. It's a very digestible, short watch. And for how little time it has, it really does flesh out its side characters fairly well, in my opinion. The crew that the TARDIS team meet on the ground, they're all believable. You do end up caring about them when we get to part 2, and a lot of them are dying off. Field Major Steyer, amazing. I think we got the same Sontaran actor that we got for Lynx with the Time Warrior. And to link back to the Time Warrior, I mentioned that was potentially my favourite Sontaran story. That spot is in contention with this one. The Sontaran Experiment is just as good as Time Warrior, and I always battle in my head which one of them I prefer. It's different depending on which day you ask me, to be honest with you, but this one is so damn good. I also love that this story is all filmed on location. I love it. Anyway, right, now we move on to Genesis the Daleks, which obviously is going to go in S tier. It deserves S tier. It's got its status as being the #1 Doctor Who story, and the fact that it's 6 parts and it doesn't have any fluff, any filler, is crazy to me. It's so damn strong. It's firing on all cylinders the whole way through. The war on Skaro is realised brilliantly in the opening minutes. Like, you can really feel like a war-torn planet when the Doctor and the others are all walking through it. Love the landmine scene. The gassing in the trenches as well was a really like gritty scene as well. The whole story is quite gritty, actually. They've really realised Skaro to tremendous effect, like with the Norms and the Thals and the Khaleds. It's a really well thought out script. Seeing the origin of the Daleks obviously needs no introduction, and also introducing you to Davros, a very, very iconic character for Doctor Who that wasn't introduced before this story, and I think he's perfectly realised excellently throughout this thing. What I like as well is the Daleks don't get a tremendous amount of focus till like the last episode, and I just really enjoy that. I enjoy that the story is a bit more political and less flashy, shooty action, you know, that they're trying to give you substance over style. And this story was obviously chocker-stacked with iconic moments from the show that still get referenced to this day. I don't know whether I prefer it to Sontaran Experiment, which is surprising, but god damn is it amazing. It's better than Ark in Space for me. I may as well whack it above Sontaran Experiment, but it is always quite close for me as to which one of these two I prefer. But yeah, now we move on to the finale of Season 12, which often gets shit on. And I don't bloody know why, but we have Revenge of the Cybermen, which is going to easily go in A tier. It's the weakest of Season 12, but that's like saying your least favourite pizza is stuffed crust with mushrooms, right? Like pizza's still pizza. Returning to Nerva, obviously, I love it. I love that they bring the story full circle. I love that it's under siege by the Cybermen. It's a perfect, epic closing story for the season. I also love that this is the first time we see the Cybermen in so many years, and besides the Cybermen voices being a bit weird, sounding like not quite right, I really enjoy them on screen. I think they're threatening, I think they're creepy as well. They haven't got the same flair that they did in the 60s, but the 60s, it was black and white telly. There was a lot of factors that made the Cybermen work so well in the 60s that not many Cybermen stories still today stack up to stuff like the Moon Base or the Invasion, etc., right? The stuff with the Vogons are good. The Cybermats and the Cyber Plague, great plot points there as well, really great to see on screen. And I just also, side note, the soundtrack in this story fucking bangs. it's a corker. But yeah, Revenge of the Cybermen is amazing, and I won't hear any different. Anyone who says this story isn't good can go suck an egg, because they're wrong. Anyway, now we move out of Season 12 and into Season 13. Another one of my favourite Doctor Who seasons. Terror of the Zygons, starting off very fucking strong. Okay, what are we doing? So this is another unit story. This is one of the final ones that we get for a long time, I believe. No, it's not. My bad. It's not, because technically you have unit in Pyramids of Mars, kinda, and then you have them in Android Invasion. Ignore me. But it's unit up in Scotland. Stuff with the Loch Ness is great fun. The effects of the monster are a big yikes, but once again, that adds to the charm of some of these stories for me, so I'll give it a pass. I think what's so cool about this one is that this is the fucking only story, excuse my French, that has the Zygons. There are no other Zygon stories in the classic series. The next Zygon story isn't till Day of the Doctor, which shows you how good the story is, because it took just this one corker story to cement the Zygons as being a classic Doctor Who monster. Great design of the spaceship. Love the Zygon spaceship. It's so creative and fun. I think they use the ability to shapeshift really well in this story. It's not just a gimmick for the monsters. There are actually good plot points that come from it, like the Harry Sullivan Zygon that disguises as Harry Sullivan, right? That's a fun one. It does add an extra layer of tension, whether you can like trust anyone that you're with, because there could be a Zygon. I just really enjoy that. And also a great way to send off Harry Sullivan. I wish that he stayed on the TARDIS longer, but that's just because I love that TARDIS team so much. Yeah, I think it definitely deserves S tier. I think it is slightly better than Ark, but I'm going to leave it behind Sontaran Experiment for me. But it is a fucking banger. Now we move on to Planet of Evil. The most underrated of the early years of Tom, I will say. The first 3 seasons, I think this is the one that gets overlooked most. The sets in this one are fucking brilliant, especially on the planet surface. Maybe shove it in A for now, I guess. The antimatter monster, fucking so cool. Such a cool idea, and so well realised with how they look. Even with the effects being a bit I just enjoy how they play their part in the story. Zeta Minor is really cool. Like I say, the set itself of Zeta Minor is done so well, so perfectly executed. Also, some really, really great cliffhangers in this one too. Is it a high B or a low A? I think I'm being very, very biased towards early Tom Baker, so maybe put it at the top of B. But now we move on to Pyramids of Mars. I love that it's set in the Unit mansion, like decades before Unit moves in. I really enjoy that aspect. The mummies are imposing and threatening as well. Gabriel Wolfe is perfect as Sutekh. Nothing but good things to say about him and his performance. Sutekh is so well realised as a big bad. He makes the Doctor his bitch in this story. And also the stuff on Mars is really fun. The only thing I will say is I think the resolution is a little bit too rushed and maybe a bit half-baked. It does feel like for such a big, threatening villain, it should have taken a bit more to defeat him. But yeah, where is this going? I'm gonna stick it above Revenge. I think it belongs to be somewhere strong in A tier at the very least. Now we move on to the android invasion. Okay, so the Doctor and Sarah get back to Earth and things feel off. It's a fun, inciting incident with how people they know are acting hostile to them, right? And I do really like the Krauls. They give off Sontaran vibes, which is fine, but their first reveal is really well done. Androids are fun, used really well as well, in my opinion. I will say that they do use some of the same story beats as they did with the Zygons, with people like Harry and Sergeant Benson being like disguised as androids, right? They did a similar thing in Terror of the Zygons. I do like when it's turned out that Sarah isn't to be trusted either. That was a great moment for me too. I think they played a bit more into the you can't trust people that you know. I think that was utilized really, really well here too. So I am gonna chuck this at the top of B. I think it's a really strong one. But yeah, now we move on to the brain of Morbius. Right, let's do this. So the Frankenstein vibes, really strong on here. I'm a big fan of it. Planet Khan is a great setting, gloomy and gothic atmosphere. Chef's kiss for me. Hits all the right notes for me. Solomon is a great baddie as well, really well played. The stuff with the Sisterhood is cool as well, and much like with the Zygons and Sutek only appearing once, the only one appearance of Morbius in the story left a strong impression on the fan base, just like the Zygons and Sutek, right? Yeah, I think that earns Brain of Morbius a strong A tier. Yeah, I think it deserves top of A for now. I think it's better than Robot, but I think that might just be me enjoying the gothic vibes a bit too much. I'm not going to mention the Morbius Doctors, by the way, because that has no lasting effect on the Doctor's lore until we reach Jodie's era, so not commenting on that right now, and it shouldn't affect how this story lands, right? So anyway, now we move on to Seeds of Doom. The Krenoids are a really cool threat. The costumes are just repainted Axons, but I don't mind. They still look cool. The Arctic scenes are cool as well, with how they just white painted a quarry. It creates good atmosphere. I'm a big fan of it. The space pod infecting the scientists was cool as well. The mansion was such a good setting. I'm a big fan of that location. You do enjoy the design of the big Krenoid in its final form. And Harrison Chase is such a good antagonist. I'm a big fan of him. Amelia was cool on screen. Scorby as well. Great cast overall, to be honest. I think everyone is doing such a great job at making this story memorable. I'm going to stick this one at the bottom of A. I think it is another really, really strong story. Damn, Jesus Christ. There you go. That was the end of season 13. Another strong season of Tom Baker. We're now moving into season 14. Another really, really strong season of Doctor Who. Another one of my favourites too, actually. We move into Masque of Mandragora. Another one of the more forgettable stories, or overlooked, underappreciated of the early Tom Baker, right? So Renaissance Italy is such a great setting. The menacing nature of the Mandragora helix is so cool. Has a great presence throughout the story, even when it's not on screen and being used actively. My thing is maybe the resolution could have been paced a bit better for me. Besides that, the story is really well done, and I have to give it credit. This is the first appearance of the Gothic TARDIS from Tom Baker's era, which I'm a big fan of. Where, you know, the wooden look with all the the banisters, right, and like the bookshelf looking console. I'm a big fan of that TARDIS interior, so getting to see that for the first time here was such a nice moment, because I like that TARDIS. So I'm going to stick here behind Planet of Evil. I think it's a fair spot for it. Now we move into the Hand of Fear. Great story. I think the main reason people like it is it's Sarah's last one, and it does a really good job at giving her a good farewell story. They really give her a lot to do in this one. The mystery of who the fuck Eldrad is fun, and it keeps you in. It keeps you guessing as to what's going on a little bit. The creepy stone hand found in the excavated quarry is so cool. I love seeing that thing. It looks really creepy. And I absolutely love the final scene with Tom and Sarah. One of the best companion departure scenes for me. It is so bittersweet. So beautifully done. I do enjoy most of this story. I think it loses me when they reach Kasira, if that's how you say that. Besides that, it's pretty strong. I'm going to put it behind Mandragora or above. They're pretty close for me. Don't know which I prefer. I guess I'll put it above because of the moments we get with Sarah here. Quite good. Right, now we move on to Deadly Assassin. Another fucking strong story. Holy crap. This story being companionless actually works in this story's favour for me. Usually a Doctor Who episode with no companion would work to a detriment, but it really helps streamline the cast and make the story feel less crowded. Also points for it being a Gallifrey based story. Like, we don't get many of those, so you got to savor them when you get them, especially when it's a good Gallifrey story, which is quite rare. The Doctor being framed for the murder is really fun to see. A great inciting incident. I love the horrifying shit that you see in the Matrix as well. Holy crap. The political drama stuff was fun as well, and the Master's reveal was pretty cool. Gross melted face. I also love the fight at the end that we get. Top marks. Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about this story. I think it's an absolute corker, and it stands out from the pack for being very unique in all the things it does, with it being Gallifrey, one of the only Master stories with Tom Baker, being the story after Sarah Jane, etc. I think it's really strong, and I am gonna plop it in S, because that is where it belongs. It is a fucking banger. Right, now we move on to the Face of Evil. Leela's first story. The Doctor getting roped into the conflict between the two clans is really cool. And I love how one of them wants his help and the other wants to murder his ass, right? I really enjoy that. I like the reveal as well, where we see the Doctor's face carved into the wall, or in the cliff face, I should say. It's really, really funny to me. I always chuckle at that moment with how Tom Baker plays it. I like how they introduce Leela in here as well. They give her a lot of agency right off the bat. And I like that she brings a very different dynamic as a companion compared to previous. Like, she's very headstrong, very territorial, very protective, I guess, but also cautious. I just really enjoy the dynamic Leela has with the Doctor overall, and this is a great way to set up her character. Face of Evil, low A tier for me. I think is it better than Seeds of Doom? Maybe not quite better than Seeds of Doom, but I think it does deserve A at the very least. Cool, now we move into the Robots of Death. Okay, another corker. Damn, holy shit, am I going to stick this one in S? I don't know. I will say this one makes me laugh, because it's a murder mystery, but the killer is spoiled in the title, right? The Vok robots, however, are really cool. They're a really cool threat. The spaceship set works really well, and the imagery of the planet's surface outside really works to isolate the entire thing. All angles of the story is fleshed out really well, like Keldor and the supporting cast. If it were just the threatening robots that was good about the story, then it wouldn't be as strong for me, but all layers and facets of this story are well imagined and realised, I think. Which is why, god damn it, I might have to stick this one in A tier too. I think I am. Bollocks. Yeah, I think it's better than Pyramids. I think it does belong in there. Holy shit. Okay, now we move on to Talons. Okay, here we go. This one's a doozy, because though it is a fucking excellent script in some ways, there are some dodgy aspects to it in the production that were overlooked, and I kind of wince at a bit watching it now. Let's go through the positives, I guess, first. So the script is great for the most part. The cast is brilliant. The cast kills it in this story. Jago and Lightfoot, joyous to see on screen. The setting of Victorian London, England is brilliant. Like the imagery in the story as well, like bodies floating in the Thames. Just a murky, gruesome tone to the whole thing. Really gritty. The Palace Theatre is a great set piece as well. Love the giant rat as well. You can't help but love that. But as for the racist makeup on John Bennett, I can only comment so much based on my background, but it cringes me to watch these days. And also some of the less than pleasant slurs that are just said just kind of plague the story a bit from me. If it were for just the good things that I like about it, this could have easily been an S tier. I still do really enjoy the story, but I feel bad enjoying it for all the things that plague it. You know what I mean? Which means that I do have to demote it some, thanks to what it does, unfortunately. But I can't deny that it isn't a great story. Like, I don't want to put it down here, because the script is great, the acting's great, there's some great stuff in there, but I can't put it up here either. It doesn't feel right to me to do that, because there are a lot of things that genuinely ruin it for me. But I guess I'll just split the difference and put it like B or something. I don't know where to put Talons, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll just stick it top of B and call it a day. But now we move on to Horror of Fang Rock, one of my fucking favourites of all time. I fucking love it. It's so good, man. The first of the Graham Williams era, This story represents almost nothing of what Graham Williams' era will end up being. Horror Fang Rock very much feels like a leftover Hinchcliffe story, like with the gothic, isolated, gloomy atmosphere with the horror aspect. Fang Rock is such a spooky setting. The characters being picked off one by one keeps the pace going really well for this story. I think with the effects of the Rutan itself, if it weren't for Colin Douglas, it wouldn't have worked. But thank God it did, because this story is so charming. It's so great. The atmosphere, the acting, the supporting cast. Holy shit. Now, I did very willy-nilly just chuck this at the top of S. I don't know if it's better than these two. Maybe put it here. I think it's fair. Oh, but it is really good. Is it my favourite Tom Baker? It might be. God, I don't know. Because I did watch it from a young age, so I do have a lot of nostalgia for it, much like these two here. But is it better than them? It's got good pacing. Leela's really good in it. So is Tom. Damn. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it's my favourite Tom Baker story. I wasn't expecting for it to end up that way. But I guess that's why we do this tier list. So I surprise myself sometimes, don't I? Okay. Now we move on to the Invisible Enemy. Now we're really like kicking into the Graham Williams stuff. So this one's quite fun. Obviously the first K9 story. This is what it's known for, mostly. The Doctor being infected with that virus was a cool hook for the story. I do like that the story turns into being a trip inside the Doctor's mind. It's something that I didn't know that we needed to see, but I'm so glad that we did. There's decent action. The interior of the ship shots are really well done as well. I do think, however, that the script doesn't compare to the previous seasons of stories for me. I think that if it weren't for it having the first appearance of K9, I think it would be quite forgettable. So unfortunately, this is going to be our first C tier of the Tom Baker years. But I don't hate it. I did enjoy watching it. There wasn't anything that had me going, oh, fuck this is dumb. Like, it did lose my attention a bit here and there, but it wasn't a dreadful watch at all. But there we go. Now we move on to Fendahl. Image of the Fendahl. What a fucking corker. Sadly, this is the final proper gothic horror story that we'll see for a long time in Doctor Who, which very saddening. But this is a good one to go out on. This one's a really good one, actually. I really like Fendahl. I'm kind of fond of the design of the giant Fendahl monster. I think it's really well done. Some people have a problem with it, but I've always been quite fond of it. I love all the stuff in the mansion. The mystery death surrounding the creepy skull is really cool. The foggy nighttime scenes as well. Oh, God, it's so good, man. Oh, is it an S tier? I think it is. I really like this one. You know what? Enjoy. I think it's obvious what type of Doctor Who stories I enjoy the most. It is the gothic horror ones, which is why all of these are up here in A and F. But anyway, now we move on to the Sunmakers. This one is interesting. I always overlooked it. But going back to it this time, I got a bit of clarity going, this one does some cool things. Story offers some very poignant social and political commentary, for one. So on Pluto, the taxes are so high that people are dying. No comment needs to be made about the real world, but it's poignant, and it gets its point across really well in the story. The Collector is such an over-the-top goofy villain. Kind of endearing to watch on screen, though. Makes it more enjoyable when it's all hammed up, all goofy and pantomimey, right? But maybe takes away from the grit and the realism that the story has so far. I do enjoy all of the action-y shit we get with K9 in this one. I think it deserves B. I think it does. I think it's better than Mandragora as well. I'll put it behind Planet of Evil, though. I think that's my main note, is some of the goofiness in the story maybe undercuts the really strong commentary that this story achieves, at least for me. I was very surprised as to how much I enjoyed it, considering I didn't really remember much about it before going back to it for this binge, right? I think that's what's so good about doing this marathon of Doctor Who and ranking them, is because it makes me rethink what I initially thought of certain stories that maybe I overlooked. But here's a story that I very much understand why I overlooked, because bloody hell, not that good. I'll be honest, Underworld is our first D tier of the day. I'm impressed that it took this long. We had to get halfway through Tom Baker's era before we get any of the D tiers, so that's something. But trust me, it won't be the last. Anyway, I think what this story suffers from most is the piss poor budget. I mean, holy shit. I mean, I've Listen, I've commented on liking the wobbly sets and the piss-poor production on Doc 2 before. I've claimed that it makes the stories more likeable. But when I am saying that, I'm saying it in defense of stories that for the most part have really airtight scripts. Like, I can forgive a story like Ark in Space for having wobbly sets because the script is so damn good. Unfortunately, Underworld does not have a strong script backing it for me. The CSO at the time was fucking dreadful, and that's essentially all this story has going for it. It's using CSO for most of its imagery, and that's why it falls flat, in part. It is a disaster, frankly. Underworld was one of the most difficult watches I've had in this new marathon of Doc 2 that I've been doing. The Oracle is barely of note. The acting is below par because actors have to pretend that they're on this alien world or whatever, when in reality they're just on a green screen or a blue screen, right? It just... the only thing I can genuinely praise this thing for is the design of the minions is pretty fun. That's all I have to say. It was just quite a drag to watch. It wasn't all that fun. I won't lie. It was a bit poo. But yeah, now we move on from Underworld, thank fucking God, into Invasion of Time. Okay. I've gone on record saying how I enjoy this one. So, the budget is cut thin here once again, so that has to be addressed. The way to view this one is it's so bad that it's good. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I get why people don't enjoy it. I find it endearing. I view this story in two halves, right? So, the first half is the Gallifrey mystery drama thing, and then the second half just turns into, fuck it, let's throw the Sontarans in there. When you view it like that, God, I can't help but just chuckle at it. It's just such good fun to watch for me. I don't know. The pacing is shot to fuck on here. I'll be honest. I'm going to try and judge this one as objectively as I can because it is one that I like that not many people do. But what I will say, Leela's exit is not handled at all well, in my eyes. But I do enjoy the chases from the Sontarans towards the end. Also, the mystery tinfoil revealing to not be the Sontarans was actually ironically surprising to me the first viewing when I originally watched this, because I went into this thinking this was a Sontaran story, and them not showing up until when they did was such a great twist for me, because I genuinely thought that they would have been revealed there, but they weren't, and I was just that really got me. And obviously, some fun cliffhangers in there. It's got its ups, it's got its downs. I find things I enjoy, but I can objectively see the flaws with this one. So I am going to treat it fairly, and I'm going to stick it here. I'm going to stick it in B, because I like it, but I can see why people don't, because objectively, god damn, does it have issues. I'm going to put it behind the Sunmakers. People might think that's sacrilege to put it above Sarah Jane's final story, but that's where it's staying, so fuck you. Okay, now let's move into Key to Time. A season of Doctor Who which I've previously overlooked and have not paid much mind to. I've had an interesting love-hate relationship with Key to Time, because though it has its moments, and there are some stories in there that are quite good, the overall thing, the actual overarching story doesn't work for me on a whole. I think that the actual plot of the Key to Time is very half-baked and isn't realised as well as it maybe could have. I appreciate the ambition of it though, which is why I always appreciate when the show does stuff like Key to Time, Trial of a Time Lord, Flux. I appreciate when they do stuff like that, because it adds to the tension of the overall season that those respective ideas are in. But let's get into the Ribos Operation first. Okay, this one starts off Key to Time fairly strong, I will say. This is one of the stronger ones from this season. The mission being introduced, and also introducing the stakes along with that, and also introducing Romana. It juggles a lot, and it doesn't fall on its face fully. It's not the strongest season opener that I've ever seen, but I think with how much it has to introduce at once, I'm very impressed with how well it does compared to what's stacked against it, right? I like the stuff with the Guardian a lot in this one, and Romana and the Doctor meeting is really fun. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I enjoyed how this begins. It's a nice inciting first story, and I enjoy the idea of Key to Time a bit more than the season itself watching it, if that makes sense at all. But Ribos Operation is a great start. I'm going to put this one at the bottom of B. I think it's a fun first attempt at this season. So now we move on to the pirate planet. So what has this one got? So the mystery disappearance of the planet Calufrax in place of another planet is a great first impression for the story. It creates a great mystery. I enjoy the concept as well. That's really fun. This one is a tiny bit too over-satirical for my taste, like a bit too goofy, considering, you know, the subject matter that goes on. Like, I can't take this story's villain very seriously, but the villain's plan is really cool. The overall idea of it is fine. The pacing is okay, to be fair. I've heard people say this is the worst of Key to Time, which I've never understood. There are definitely worse in Key to Time than this. I'm going to whack it in C tier behind Invisible Enemy. I think it's fine there. It's just a bit too goofy, I guess, is my main takeaway of it. On screen, it's played off a bit too fun and jolly for my taste. But now we move on to the Stones of Blood, which teases me with the potential of a cool gothic horror story. Moving rocks and cult sacrifice, I'm like, fucking yes please. But then it says, fuck that, we're gonna move to a spaceship. And I'm just like, oh. And when it moves to the spaceship, that's when this story takes a big L for me. But Tom Baker in the judge's wig is a massive dub for this story, and I can't help but love it. So we're going to split the diff. If it was all gothic horror, up here. Stones of Blood would have been like easily my favourite of Key to Time. But as the story progresses through and drifts away from its original inciting incidents, the less I enjoy it. So I'm going to have to put it here, top of C. Because it is enjoyable, but it has stuff that annoys me, I guess. It doesn't quite do what I want it to do. Like, it's nearly there, but then it's like, nah, we're going to do something else now. Yeah, like I say, they don't go all in on the gothic horror, which annoyed me a bit, because that's what I was hoping they'd do. But anyway, now we move on to the androids of Tara. So the android doubles are yet again used to great effect. Really well done here. The Tauran Wood Beast is fucking laughable. Holy shit. Can't help but just fucking crease up laughing when I see that stupid thing. But Count Grendel is a fun, cunning villain. I think really well utilised here. I think as well as that, Grendel would have been a great villain to put toe-to-toe with John Pertwee. I think it would have been really fun to see those two interact. I think as well as that, this story gets a big shot in the arm thanks to the budget. Going from after like season 15 with how fucking shit the budget was from story to story, seeing this story with all the pretty awesome effects and set in the past and how good it looks for the time, God, I can't help but love it, man. It does so much right, and I just really enjoy it. I am gonna put it, where do I put it? Fuck me. It is quite good. Do I put it above Revenge of the Cybermen? No, it's not better than that. I'll put it above Seeds of Doom. There you go. I think Androids of Tara is a fucking solid story. Definitely the best of Key to Time for me. But now I move on to the Power of Kroll. I like the idea of a monster that's unconceivably massive in scale. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of like a Cthulhu monster in Doctor Who. I wish we'd get more of that. I think the Kroll miniature models don't do justice to Robert Holmes' vision, maybe, is my main issue. Unlike every other Key to Time story, this one uses the key as a plot point and focus and plays an active part in the rest of the story, which I really appreciate. Because most of the other Key to Time stories, the Key to Time plot itself is second to whatever they're doing as the primary plot for the story, right? It's just mostly table dressing to facilitate the rest of the serial, as it were. It's a bit of an afterthought, but I appreciate that. I appreciate what this one does, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it does a lot right in terms of the script. And it was a fun treat to see John Leeson not as K9. Seeing him on screen for a change. That was a welcome surprise that I don't remember seeing when I watched this one originally. Excuse me, by the way, I've got a bit of a cold. So, I think Power of Kroll was a sleeper hit. I really did not expect to enjoy this one in the slightest, and I went out of it being quite satisfied with what I saw. It's not perfect by any stretch, but I think it is better than Ribos. I'm gonna put it above the Sunmaker. No, I'll put it behind the Sunmakers. I think that one's fair. I'll leave it there for now. That'll do. And then here we go. Now we have the Armageddon Factor. Okay. Here we go. Let me just fucking do this real quick. Okay. So we'll go through the story beat by beat, I guess. Or not beat by beat because we'll be here forever, but because it's a 6-parter that drags like fuck. But, okay, so it's set on a planet at war, so a fun idea, but that's not what is so poo about this story for me. For Key to Time being so ambitious, this story never stuck the landing for me when it came to this season. Like, holy crap. For me, when it comes to telling any longer story, the most important bit for me is the ending, and if the ending is bad, then it's kind of ruined the whole experience for me, because the ending is what you fucking lead to when you create such an ambitious story. You want the ending to be satisfying, but this one is anything but for me, personally. What I will say, though, is this story does do well is showing off what the Key is capable of, maybe, but only to a certain extent. It could have done so much more with it for me, personally. The Guardian's betrayal, admittedly, was quite a fun twist, but it creates so many more issues that I don't think even the writers realised, because it puts into question what was accomplished in this entire season if the Guardian was bad the whole time, right? Like, from assembling the Key after all this to then just be like, oh, never mind then, I guess we did all of this for nothing. To just getting the Key, like, separated back across the universe is just such a slap to the face after going through the whole season, seeing where it would lead to. It just kind of leaves me being like, well, what was the fucking point then? You know, I personally never really appreciated how they kind of fell on their face when it came to concluding Key to Time. And also, it doesn't help that Mary Tam as Romana got fucking no semblance of a satisfying send-off, personally. I know that they don't kill off the character themselves or write them out. They get recast. But poor Mary Tam, she just unceremoniously gets like written out between stories, which I never really appreciated, personally. You should be treating your companions with a bit more respect than that, I believe. Yeah, I don't have that much love for the Armageddon Factor. I feel like it's a very poorly executed finale to an otherwise promising season with some fun notes that I did kind of enjoy, but overall the conclusion is the bit that's most important that you get right, because that's the point, that's the thing that your story is working towards the whole time. And if you do that wrong, then the entire story's kind of fell on its face. Anyway, rant over. Now we move on to Destiny of the Daleks. Okay, so the Doctor and the regenerated Romana are on Skaro again. Cool, got me so far. The Daleks are there to dig up their creator Davros. Fun. Sounds really exciting. The Dalek props do not look great. Holy shit. And they are treated and referred to as robots in here. I have an issue with that, because that's not how you write the Daleks. The Daleks are not machine learning like enemies. They run on hate. They don't run on logic like the Cybermen. So there's just a fundamental misunderstanding on what the Daleks are here. The Movellans are a fun extra component to this otherwise very messy script. It's an uneven watch. I remember enjoying this one a lot more when I was younger, but it might have just been because the Daleks are in it at this point. Top of C is where this goes. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I know people hate this one a lot more than I do. I don't have a tremendous amount of love for it. I like seeing Davros on screen. And the Daleks are fun on screen, but they're just treated wrong. They're just, like I say, a misunderstanding on how the Daleks are in this story. But yeah, and also it's kind of surprising that it was written by Terry Nation. But anyway, now we move on to City of Death. Okay, Tom Baker and Lala Ward sightseeing France is so fucking lovely. I love it. Great location filming, a great supporting cast, love the Count and Countess. The Jagaroff's plan to reverse the human race was really fucking cool, and the scenery you get of him going back in time, so good. I love the aging to death visual effects as well. I also love the John Cleese cameo. Nothing not to love here. It is a classic for a reason. It is loved for a reason. I have nothing but good things to say about City of Death. I think it is well deserved to be one of the best Tom Baker stories. I think it is. It's not like my favorite or anything, but it definitely has earned a safe place in S tier. I think it is an absolute corker in an otherwise quite messy season of Doctor Who here, with Season 17. So now, speaking of messy, let's move on to Creature from the Pit, because, okay. What? Okay, here we go. This is an interesting run of Doctor Who that we're going to get to here. So Krollis is a fun planet, I guess. Not utilised as well as I'd hoped. The creature costume, I'm sorry, it's just a fucking green trash bag. Like, and it has a phallic member. Like, I think Terrence Dicks put it best. It looks like a giant dick. It fucking does. Holy shit. The full model scale version isn't even much better for the monster either. There's no threat to it. It just looks fucking stupid. The plot isn't objectively dreadful, but it should have been a 3-parter though. It drags a bit here and there, and yeah, I don't know what happened with this one. Do better. That's my take. Is it C or D though? That's my thing. It's definitely not as bad as these two at the bottom here. But does it deserve to be next to like Stones of Blood and stuff like that? I don't know. It's kind of in the middle between these two tiers. I'll be generous and I'll put it here because we do reach worse stories. Okay, now we move on to Nightmare of Eden. So the Doctor and Romana offer to help the Empress cruise liner that's warped into that cargo ship. Cool idea. The Mandrels' costumes though, I don't know, man. Ropey at best. That's all I'll say. I will say they do look fine under low light in the setting of Eden. It's when they're on the brightly lit, sterile ship is when they look laughable waddling around how they do. The darker themes were really refreshing to see in this story compared to like the slapstick, goofy nature that most of season 17 is. I like that this story has a bit of grit to it when it comes to its subject matter. Overall, though, it has its positives and negatives, but the negatives do outweigh the positives in some ways for me. It can just sit there behind Invisible Enemy for me. It has some moments. It has its moments. I'll give it that. But now we move on to Horns of Nimon. Okay, so I said that the Mandrills are bad, but the Nimon, fuck me. Romana admittedly gets a lot to do in this story. She gets a lot of good moments. Soldeed is such an idiotic character, but I can't help but laugh at him. He's fun to see on screen. The Doctor, interesting performance from Tom Baker in this one. Not his strongest, not dreadful either. Has some fun stuff in it, but in my opinion, it is among the same as Nightmare of Eden, Creature from the Pit. It just sits with them. It's not very good. Yeah. In fact, I'd be tempted to stick it top of D because it really isn't anything to redeem it besides the ironic, laughable nature of Soldeed. And like I say, the stuff that Romana gets to do, actually. You know what? Yeah, fair. You know what? I'll leave it in bottom of C. Enjoy. Okay, so now we move on to Shada. We are going to talk about Shada here. And when I'm talking about it, I'm basing it on the newest release of it, when it was fully reconstructed for its most recent DVD. So the Graham Williams era was axed very suddenly with this story left on the chopping room floor. So this one never got to see the true light of day until years later. This one is interesting because it has so many attempts to complete it, but like I say, I'm judging it on its most recent one because I believe that to be the definitive best take on the story and best. It does justice to the script the best in my eyes. I love the location shooting of Cambridge. The mystery of the book is really cool. The Skagra is fun as well. A great villain. Previously, I have been a bit so-so when asked about Shada, only because I've only seen, previous to the newest release of it, like the Telesnap recon from the Canine Tales box set. But honestly, I now believe that it is worthy of all the praise it gets, so I'd be willing to award this one an A tier spot, but where? I'll put it behind Seeds of Doom, maybe. That feels good. I think Shada's pretty damn good. But now we move on to the Leisure Hive. So, okay. This one is fun. I like it when things like this happen because on this marathon, I went into this expecting to fucking despise this one, but this is where the pitchforks come out. and people who don't like this story are going to come running. So the Doctor and Romana go to Argolis for a holiday destination, but it doesn't pan out that way. People don't like this one. And like I say, I wasn't fond of it either. But what I will say is I love the set design on this one. They went all out for this one. The premise kind of works for me as well. We have some more respectable screen time for Romana once again. Really appreciate that. Pangal is a fun villain, very well done in my eyes. The Fomarsi are pretty decent as well. I don't mind them myself. I think it's overall quite underrated. I think it has stuff going for it that people overlook and like to just hate on it because it's like the consensus bias, you know, like if enough people say that it's bad, people will just flock like sheep and just agree with the popular take. But what I like about this marathon is I'm going back through these stories and I'm finding things to like about a story that I previously overlooked potentially, and I'm getting a new perspective on some stories that maybe I haven't seen in like probably 10 years at this point with some of them, and this one is, I'm very pleased to say, I have a new appreciation for. So you can lynch me in the comments if you want for ranking this high, but I quite enjoyed it, man. I wouldn't quite put it A. I was quite hasty there, sticking it all the way up there, but I think it does deserve B. I'll stick it right next to my other guilty pleasure of Tom Baker. I'll stick it next to Invasion of Time. Nearly said Key to Time there. But there we go. Now we move on to Meglos. So, the time loop was fun. The two doctors was also cool. The CSO is also not fucking dreadful for a change. The poster of Tom Baker with the cactus face and prosthetics is striking for a reason, and it's an iconic hook for the story as well. The villain Meglos playing an evil doctor was really cool. Besides that though, it doesn't have a dreadful lot else for it. I also don't appreciate them bringing back Jacqueline Hill but not putting her as Barbara and giving her a very unceremonious death in this story. Like, I don't know what went through the studio's heads with that. You do not treat a Doctor Who actor of that ilk like that. I'm sorry, you give her more to do, in my opinion. She deserved more in her role here. Or just put her back as Barbara. Fuck's sake, if you can get her back, use her properly. Anyway, I'm going to stick it somewhere in C. Top of C probably is fine. I guess that'll do. Okay, and now we move into the final stretch of Tom Baker where we start to see his era morph into what will eventually see the Fifth Doctor's era be, or very much close to that effect. So we start with the E-Space trilogy. So full circle. In my opinion, full circles kicks off the E-Space trilogy quite strong. Alzarius is a cool setting, made spooky with Mistfall, obviously. The Marshmen are actually not bad. They look creepy, especially with the shots of them coming out of the water. I did really enjoy seeing that stuff. And this one, famously, is the story that introduces everyone's favourite companion, Adric. And for what it does introduce him quite well. But what I like more about it is that it sets up Romana's exit extremely well in my eyes. But fuck you for trying to kill off K9. So, all in all, and not a dreadful script. I didn't hate it. So, top of C it goes. Right, State of Decay. This is an attempt to feel like good old-fashioned gothic Hinchcliffe stuff, right? But it's too little too late for me. The threat in this is completely absent for me. The rulers are serviceable for the story, but aren't much of anything to take seriously. The vampire monsters are fucking silly. I enjoyed the canine action in here, but overall it's disappointing for what promise it had. I wish I got more from it. Like a gothic, it's gothic Doctor Who. You'd think I'd love it, and I hoped I would. Like I liked Full Circle a lot more on this rewatch, but State of Decay left me deflated. I was very, very sad that I didn't go out enjoying it because I really wanted to enjoy this one. But yeah, it's top of D. Warrior's Gate. The script is fairly ambitious, mixing social commentary with like the cerebral ideas. Right, I enjoyed it. The ambition of Warrior's Gate is what I was hoping all of the E-Space trilogy would be, right? I expected the ambition of Warrior's Gate to be in all three stories, but it ended up only happening here, which I appreciate, but it kind of leaves the trilogy a bit like, oh, well, that's a shame. Like they got it in the end, but it didn't really hit the mark that I was hoping it would hit. But all in all, not the worst thing in the world, but I mean, it's fine. I don't despise it, but yeah. I guess it does have a decent send-off for Romana. Yeah, you know what, I'll stick it top of C. It deserves that at least. Just didn't really have my attention the whole way through, that one. Okay, now we move on to Keeper of Traken. Alright, this one is really, really sad for me, actually, because when I originally watched this one, I fucking really enjoyed it. I got Jeffrey Beavers to sign my DVD copy of this one, because I loved it so much. But going back to it, it doesn't do a whole lot for me these days, and that's really upsetting to say. Is it awful? No, absolutely not. It's not awful. The Melka is a fun plot thread that leads to the reveal of the Master, which I really do like. I loved that on Original Watched. I liked it just as much now. And then in this story, we also see the first time that the Master body snatches, right? This is the first time he steals someone's body. And I particularly like the idea of the Master stealing the body of a character who he'd come to know very well, Nyssa. So the Master becoming Nyssa's dad is a really cool plot thread, which I'm sure will come back at some point in the future of the show. Oh no, it doesn't? Great. But as for introducing this companion Nyssa, it's done fairly well. The Master's plan is pretty cool, but overall I think the pacing of this story could have done with a bit of work. It feels a bit sluggish. There's a bit too much filler in there. It could have been chopped down a bit potentially, or they could have added a bit more to keep me in. But it's not horrible. It's like I said, I went back to it kind of feeling like, oh, I remember this being a lot better, but this time round I would kind of like, it's kind of just like a nothing burger. It's fine, I guess, but it's not. I'll put it where do I put it? I'll put it above Destiny of the Daleks, I guess. But there we go. Now we move on to the Fourth Doctor's final story, at long last. Bloody hell, this is a long one. Logoplis. Let's go for it. So, this is Anthony Ainley's first full serial as the Master, and I think he does very, very well. I've always been a fan of his Master. The Mystery of the Watcher is pretty cool. Tegan's intro was also fun, I guess, but she doesn't really get that much to do in this story. The end of the universe, pretty high stakes for the story. Ultimately, end of the Fourth Doctor is dramatic and well done, and his regeneration sends him off fairly well. It's a nice ending note to end on for his Doctor, so I'll give it that. Overall, though, it has a lot of fun ideas, but maybe doesn't connect them all perfectly for me. Overall, not dreadful. Like I say, the great stuff with the Master in this story, so I have to respect that. I think this one is probably going to land in a high B. I think it's a pretty epic conclusion with some spotty script work, but overall nothing awful. Nothing offensive about it. So yeah, there you go. Right, this is our tier list for the Fourth Doctor. Let's do some little 4D chess here. Let's see what I'd move before we close out. I think I might put Brain and Morbius in S. Definitely Nimon I was too kind to. Same with Creature from the Pit. Same with Pirate Planet, to be honest. Well, no, I suppose Pirate Planet's fine. Yeah, you know what? I'm happy with that. This looks fine to me. I think Ribos Operation treading the line between B and C is quite funny to me, but that's where it stays. So, thank you very much for watching this very long tier list video where I rank all of the Fourth Doctor's era. This has been an absolute journey and a half to go through with you guys, and also watch the era, because the first half is so joyous, and then you get to like Image of the Fendahl and beyond, and then it becomes turd banger, turd banger, turd banger, turd banger. Goodbye Fourth Doctor. You know, it's just like it's a roller coaster. The second half of Tom Baker's era, to be frank. Even though I'm not Frank, I'm Zach. Ha, I'm so funny. I'm done. My brain has turned to mush after all this yapping. I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. I hope I didn't piss you off too much with my interesting takes. If you want to comment your top 5, 10, 15, 20, if you want to rank all of Tom's era in the comments, you can if you like. I wouldn't recommend it. But thanks for watching nonetheless. If you made it all the way to the end, I salute you, because this was a long one. I am going to go and grab some Strepsils because my voice is going as we speak. I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.